Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Allplane Podcast. When I started this podcast, one of my aims was to have professionals from different areas of the airline industry come here online and tell us in the first person how is it like in their line of work. Perhaps one of the most iconic roles in commercial aviation, certainly one that every passenger is familiar with, is that of cabin crew. But how much do we really know about this job? Today's guest is Magdalena Osowska. Originally from Poland, Magdalena has worked for over a decade as cabin crew at one of the major Gulf carriers. Because of her duties, she can easily visit 4 continents in as many weeks. On a typical month, she might be setting foot, for example, in Australia, then the US, Europe, and of course the Gulf. This is a lifestyle that is possibly not for everyone, but it seems to suit her perfectly. Since Magdalena is an avid traveler, and she also happens to manage a popular Instagram account called Fly Like a Wasp, where she shares insights about cabin crew life and her non-stop travel all over the world. In fact, it is only because of the pandemic that has grounded so many airlines that I managed to catch her on the ground and ask her a few questions about cabin crew life. Things like how do you become a cabin crew, or how do you cope with jet lag? And one question that had me particularly interested is how do you do to avoid running out of pages in your passport? So keep on listening to learn the answers to these and other questions about cabin crew life. Without further ado, let me welcome Magdalena to the podcast. Hello, Magda. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I guess I catch you now at your base in a Gulf country, where you are based as a cabin crew for one of the major Gulf carriers, right?
Yes, this is right. I've been home primarily for the past 2 months. I've been grounded, so I'm having a new sort of experience, very different from my daily normal flying life.
Mm-hmm. Just can you tell us in just a couple of lines about your experience? So you've been flying as cabin crew for already quite a few years, always with the same airline?
Yes, I've been flying for my current airline for the past 11 years. I do not have a previous flying experience. As a matter of fact, I've got a teaching degree, and I spent first part of my life with lots and lots of books. I was studying literature and linguistics, so it's very different from what I do now, but that actually led me to want to see the world that I was previously only reading about. So yes, so now I've been flying very, very, very intensively for the past 11 years. I'm currently on a cabin manager purser position. And
yeah, actually,
that's the brief.
We're going to get back to the, let's say, the professional / career
Right.
In a short while. But first of all, I just wanted to ask you about your experience during this pandemic, because you have been obviously grounded most of the last month, but you have also been doing some flights occasionally. I don't know if those were repatriation flights or special flights, but the fact is that you've been up there in the air. And I think that's a very interesting experience, something that can give us a glimpse of how travel looks like in these new weird times. So can you tell us a bit more about how these flights went and how you handled the whole situation from a cabin crew point of view? I mean, in terms of protection measures.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So this is indeed a very interesting experience. My airline doesn't do any of the regular commercial flights, only cargo flights and repatriation flights. And a couple of days ago, I was operating one of those flights, and prior going on board, I was really very curious about what's the flying like these days. So regarding the preventative measures or safety measures that you've mentioned, first and foremost, we are practicing social distancing as much as possible, which obviously in the aircraft environment, it's very challenging. So the crew keeps distance from each other, and the same with regards to passengers. So they are boarding at a slower pace. They are being held by the agents at the gate, and only certain smaller groups are allowed to board the aircraft, and prior that their temperature is measured. Everyone is, and then on board the aircraft, the guests, the passengers get assigned seats far away from each other, and they are not allowed to change these seats unless they move somewhere which will still keep a safe distance from other passengers. Everyone has to wear masks, so passengers must be wearing masks at all times, and the same applies to the crew, and crew also wears plastic gloves at all times.
Are these special masks in some way, or they are just regular clothes?
So we as a crew, we are provided with the surgical masks, so identical, like bluish color masks, not our own. The same for the gloves, and for the passengers, I've noticed they have their own masks. So there, yes, so there is a diversity.
And were you serving food on board as well?
Yes, definitely we do serve the food, the hot meals. However, the service has been modified to, first of all, to minimize interaction with the passengers. So that's something that, well, it's for us, it's difficult to get used to, because we are used to chatting to people, being closer, being there at all times, and now we are discouraged from doing so. So the service is designed in a way that the passenger receives the meal on the tray, and that then tray is taken away. So there is nothing sort of in between, especially in premium zones, where we used to give more of the fine dining experience. Now it's still a fine dining experience, but the one that minimizes this interaction. So the guests receive everything on the train at the one times, and meals are there is more plastic to protect the units, like appetizers or starters, and there is a lot of disposable items.
Is there some type of disinfection measure or cleaning measures when the airplane arrives back to the base?
Yes, definitely. Not only at the base, but also outstation, arriving to the destination. But then coming back to base, there are cleaning teams dressed in a protective suits with more powerful sanitizing items, and also on board the aircraft we've got a powerful sanitizing agent, I would say, we as a crew, and we have to perform a very deep cleaning of the toilets every 2 hours. So this is something that we were always checking and cleaning the toilets, but not in the same way that it's done now. So definitely these measures are also in place.
And then when arriving, was there some type of additional check, temperature check, test, or something like that when you disembark?
No, for us, for the guests, yes, there is a temperature check, and for the crew, we have a coronavirus test after each flight.
Okay, interesting. Yes. So that was kind of a one-off. So the schedule is not back yet to normal.
Definitely not. Definitely not. It's only very limited number of flights, and they don't carry too many passengers.
Have you been Have you been given an expected time for getting back to normal?
Not at the moment. No, this is just the uncertainty and living day to day. But the world it seems to be opening up, and that also raises our hopes that things will eventually go back to normal.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, we had obviously to talk about this topic because it's obviously the most pressing concern right now in the industry, and actually it's great that we could get some personal insights here about your experience. But I just wanted to switch to a more evergreen topic, which is actually the cabin crew life, being cabin crew as a professional option. So you told us a little bit about your background. I would like to go more specifically into what the cabin crew career path looks like, what your experience has been so far, and what sort of position you hold now, because you are senior. You're quite senior, I guess.
Yes. So with regards to the recruitment process, every airline handles it differently. But it all starts with the online application. So when I was first applying, I found that the airline that I now work for was looking for flight attendants for cabin crew, and I applied, and I was invited for assessment day. However, in other airlines, I know there is a Skype interview, or maybe there is just an open day. I think this is what you were referring to. So during open day, you still come sort of prepared for the interview, or in terms of grooming, and I believe you leave your CV in front of the recruiters, and based on this short interaction, you might be selected for the actual assessment day. For my airline, the assessment day is just assessment day. It's just one day, but it's a very long and intense day divided into multiple stages. So there is a stage involving some sort of introduction where you are being observed, how you interact with others, how you present yourself, etc. There is a part covering group activities, just to see how the candidate performs within the group, and then it's a final interview. Mm-hmm. And after each stage, sadly, some of the participants are asked to leave. So after each stage, there are two groups, and one is lucky and one is unlucky, and frankly speaking, you never know which one you are in. And I went actually for quite a few assessments, so I know exactly what it feels like to be in the thank you but no group, and what it feels like to be in congratulations, you are moving forward group. So I can relate to both feelings. So yeah, that's the recruitment. Mm-hmm.
And the whole process takes, it's all conducted in this day?
Yes. Uh-huh. In my airline, and from what I heard, I've got a lot of friends in the airline industry, it normally takes just one day. However, of course, the entire recruitment process is longer because it involves submitting the application, waiting for the reply, attending the assessment day, then waiting for the results, and then it's followed by medical checks. You need to obtain some vaccinations. So from the time you actually apply until when you start working, it might be few months. Might be shorter, okay, but it might be few months. In my case, it was 4 months, if I remember correctly.
And then the next step is you move to the city where this carrier is based, I guess, and then you have to do some training.
Yes. So here in the Gulf area, all cabin crew have to be living in the base. There's only one base, so everyone has to come here, and they get accommodation provided by the company, and they start the training. The training takes about 6 weeks, and it consists of 3 parts. So there is a part covering the safety aspect of work, aviation health aspect, and the service aspect. And there's plenty of study and plenty of very technical, advanced aviation terminology that, frankly speaking, a lot of people struggle with, especially those for whom the English is not the first language. So it's a fun process. It's an intense process.
And during this time, you are already technically employed by the airline, or you can still be rejected at some point during this process?
Well, you are definitely employed. Yes, you get your staff number, you've got your company ID, you are entitled to medical coverage, etc. So all these initial privileges. But during the training, you have plenty of exams. At some point, it's every day or every 2-3 days, and those are both assessments, the written examination and practical examination. So so your performance is being continuously assessed. And of course, if you are underperforming, you are failing your exams, you do not show the potential, then you can be at this point terminated.
And during this time, you are housed by the airline, or you have to, at the moment you arrive, you need to find your own accommodation? How does it work?
No, everything is covered by the airline. In my case, I was flown here to the Gulf for free. I was picked up by the driver at the airport. I arrived to my apartment, which was very large. I was housed with another girl, and we had a huge apartment with separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms, and we had boxes with some kitchen utensils, and even some basic food like a dry food. So that made a very good impression on me back in the day.
And they keep housing you during your employment time, or this is just a temporary thing and then everyone kind of looks for his own arrangements?
So yes, this is a permanent thing. You are entitled to company provided accommodation for the entire employment. Unless, for example, you want to live outside, then you can do the rental on your own, and you can even get some allowances from the company. But currently, that's not always applicable to every category. For some, you must be married to get the allowance. You can always live outside, but if you would like to have some financial support for that, then there are certain rules apply.
You mentioned categories, which is actually perfect for the next question, to introduce the next question to make is actually from this point, when you just become inducted into the airline and you start working, let's assume you already passed the tests and the training period. What's next? What's the career ladder you can expect? And what are the different, let's say, the different ratings or the different categories that you find in a large airline like the one you are working for?
Right. So without any previous sort of airline experience or without any qualities for different positions, which I will mention in a moment, everyone starts to work in economic class. So it's a basic cabin crew flight attendant. These other categories that I mentioned, it might be an onboard chef who works in first class and customizes the passengers' meals, but obviously they have to have a previous chef experience. And another position is food and beverage manager. So this position requires experience in hotel industry and experience in managing teams. So those two categories, after initial training, they are starting to work in a respective zone. So in business and in first class, and they do not work in economy class. Anyone else starts in economy class, regardless if they have a lengthy experience. Maybe they came from another airline, maybe previously they've been flying already for 10 years. They still start in economy. However, later, based on their performance and based on the agreement that they have maybe with the airline, they can progress quicker to other working zones.
Okay. And then how does seniority work? So you from there, you are kind of moving into to business class as you gain more experience. What are the criteria to advance professionally?
Right. So the airline industry, I suppose, like many other industries, is quite dynamic and always have to adapt to the changing circumstances and demand, and that affects also the career progression and promotion. So if there is, let's say, the airline is opening more destinations and flying more aircrafts, there is of course higher demands for a certain category of the crew. For example, those working in business or first class. So if there is such a demand, then you might be promoted quite quickly based on your performance, and you would be selected for the interview, in which you need to still prove that you are the right person to be promoted and to start working in premium zones. And that can really vary. Like I said, depends on at which progression stage is the airline itself. Because once you progress, like once you become a flight attendant in business class, you are primarily working there. I know a lot of airlines, they get training for economy class, business, and first, and then they shift every flight. Today they are working in business, tomorrow in economy class. In my airline, it doesn't happen so often. It can happen, even I can work in economic class if there is a need for that. But yeah, otherwise they're just working in the assigned zones.
And what about, let's say, the structure, the hierarchy inside the cabin? You fly long haul, so relatively large number of crew in the plane. Sure. So I guess there is some hierarchy there. What are the different categories that you can find inside the plane?
Right. All right. So we do have the people working in economy class, and we have people working in business class, and then first class if the aircraft has first class. And we have a supervisor in economic class, so someone who supervises the crew in that zone. You call them a cabin senior. And then we have a supervisor in business class, the person I mentioned earlier, food and beverage manager. And then we also have someone I mentioned earlier, chef, working in first class with the designated cabin crew also trained for the first class service. And the person overall in charge is cabin manager or purser, like many airlines call them. And that's, this is the position that I currently have.
And the chef, does he really cook on board, or it's just rearranging food that is being brought already pre-cooked?
It's a combination of both, because obviously the aircraft environment is quite limited with regards to resources. It's not a kitchen, but there are certain things that can be done to the guest liking, and so you can have your eggs as you wish, maybe scrambled, or it could be an omelette and it's done from the fresh eggs. The same applies to meats. It could be a steak cooked to your liking, plus basically some ad hoc creation based on the passenger preference. So yes, there is definitely an outlet for creativity.
And being more senior in cabin crew, does it give you the chance to select, for example, where are you flying to? What type of aircraft are you flying? How is this allocated? Do you know beforehand where are you going to fly, or can you request to fly to specific destinations?
Thank you. So first and foremost, what determines where you're flying is whether or not you have a license for the certain type of aircraft. You mentioned a few times that I do long haul flights, which is true. And this is because I don't have a license for a narrow body aircraft Airbus A320 that we operate. So obviously I cannot fly to the destinations served by this particular aircraft. So yes, that's one limitation or the factor that determines where the person flies to. Another one is for some destinations we have a visa requirements, such as US. Well, basically it's not the only destination. So to fly to US as a cabin crew, you have to have a cabin crew working visa.
Can I stop you here 1 second? Because how do you manage with all the different visas and permits? Because your airline flies to quite a diverse range of countries that have very different visa requirements, even some very different geopolitical situations. I'm not sure how this is handled on a practical basis. Do you have, as a cabin crew, do you have some type of special visa?
Well, so we basically can enter any country visa free. We do not have to have it arranged, except for US, which I mentioned, and which is arranged by the embassy, but with the support of the company. So it's also not on our own, but we are being sent by the company. This is paid for and arranged by the company. Another restriction is certain European countries will require the European passport or Schengen visa or a special license or like a special certificate given by the company. So those are basically the only restrictions. And other than that, everyone, regardless of the nationality, can fly to to any destination. Only at some destinations, our passports will be stamped. So if that particular crew flies often to the same destination, well, then they start worried about running out of the passport pages.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things I had here written down to ask you, because as a passport stamp collector myself, I was
right.
how many stamps you have in your passport, because you also, besides your work travel, you also, we're going to talk about this later, but you are also
yes.
travel a lot on your own. You have a travel Instagram account that talk about this later as well. And so I guess at some point you start running out of pages in your passport. At a practical level, that must be a bit of a problem if you have to start getting extra passports, additional pages and all that.
Yes, that is definitely a problem. Like I said, because of my work, I don't get my passport stamped that often, which is great. But because I travel extensively outside of work, then yes, my passports, they get filled with stamps quite quickly. And at the moment, I'm actually traveling with 4 passports.
Wow.
And because in one passport, I have an American visa, the crew visa that I mentioned. In another passport, I have the country visa, the residence visa. And then another passport will be my regular, my current, not expired passport. So yeah, that gets, and whenever I want to apply for the new passport, the biggest problem is to find time to actually go and apply for the.
Wow. So then you have all this visa issue more or less sorted. What about the typical roster then? How your typical week or the typical month looks like? How many flights are you expected to complete every month? And how are they organized? I guess you have to respect certain periods of rest between flights. Also,
yes.
Because you fly long haul, you would often spend 1 or 2 days at destination.
So to answer this question, I'm gonna touch on your earlier question about how it's determined where we are flying. So we actually have privilege to request certain flights. So we can sort of design our own schedule. So we've got a requesting system in which you can put your preference and multiple preferences, either for flights or days off. And if you are lucky, they would be granted. So for example, if you want to fly to Paris, let's say as many times as possible, you can indicate that, and maybe your whole roster will just have 5 Paris flights back and forth. Or you maybe want to meet your friend who is currently in Singapore, and so you request Singapore on a certain date, or you want to fly with your best friend, you've got that option too. So there is multiple things that you can do to state your preference and to be assigned to certain routes.
What about the number of flights? Are all cabin crew members kind of flying the same amount of flights, or that depends on other things?
That really depends, and that is something beyond our control. So we always, during our chats, the people tend to complain that they are flying too much or too little. I personally have quite a balanced roster. So we of course there is a maximum, there is a certain maximum that the crew can fly, and that's connected to radiation and to legal rest, something you have mentioned already. We have to have at least 8 days off. It's I'm not gonna get into details because it's about like within this time, not necessarily the month, but within the certain amount of the days. But let's say roughly within the month, it's about 8 days off. And we have to have a space between the flights. And again, there is a lot of legalities that affect that. So I'm currently looking at my schedule from March, just to give an idea. It's I was up in the air. The actual flying hours were 105. And the duty hours were 150, which is quite a lot. In March, I was still very, very busy.
So duty hours.
On average.
Duty hours. Sorry, duty hours includes the pre-flight and the post-flight, and if you are in a destination, so you arrive you do a long haul flight, and let's say you go to the US or to Australia, which is a long way from the Gulf. and then you spend maybe 24 hours at destination, that would count as duty as well.
It does count as a duty, but it's not count within the duty hours time. So the duty hours, they include the time of the briefing. So that it's about 1.5 hours before the actual flight. So briefing, then the actual flight, and then half an hour after landing in the destination. This is the duty hours. And on average, I would get about 120 duty hours. So March was an exception with the higher number, but yeah, about 120 hours. And then something that you're referring to as a out of base rest, I have it indicated here that I had 150 hours in March. And then if I may, just gonna run you through very quick. In March, I had 2 days off. Then I had Frankfurt flight, 30 hours in Frankfurt, then 2 days off. And then I had a flight to Maldives with 28 hours in Maldives. I landed in the middle of the night. And then the next day morning, I was flying to Geneva. After that, 2 days off, then Los Angeles flight and 2 days off. So Los Angeles is considered our ultra long haul flight. It's actually the longest flight in our network, 16 hours. And before and after this flight, I have to have at least 2 days off. So that's the legal requirement there. And I spent 48 hours in Los Angeles. And then I went to Singapore with 2 days off before and 2 days after, and then to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So it was
quite a very diverse range, collection of destinations here, very different from each other.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it was just, and very different with regards to, the continent, of course, and the climate, because we're talking March, the temperature in Maldives is very different from Washington or Frankfurt for that matter. So yes, that is just a sample of the diversity that I'm dealing with.
I guess you are not always flying with the same people though. So the crew can be just random. You know each other.
So we are, first and foremost, we are a very multicultural crowd. And we do not fly with the same teams. And it happens very, very rarely that you would know someone on the flight. Maybe one person that you just know you flew with them before. But most of the times it's just new faces. And it's getting very interesting that when you realize that you have to start working with the people you've never seen before, for people of different ages, with a different cultural, educational background, and you have to start working with them very well in a quite challenging working environment. But this is done, if I may just quite from my experience, this goes very well to the point that once when I had my family members on the flight, then kept on asking me after the flight, after some time, like, how is this person? How is this person? Because they get acquainted. And I said, I have no idea because I've never seen them before and I've never seen them after. And they were like, but you gave that impression that you know each other for years and you work so well and you treated each other with so much respect and friendliness. So yes, this is definitely one skill that we all develop to get along well with a lot of different people.
And so then you get to spend maybe 24, 30, 40 hours with these people at destination. Do you guys just hang out together at the hotel, or everyone kind of spends the time separately on its own? You go to places like the Maldives, I guess. I mean, you have some time there to unwind a little bit, go to the beach and stuff like that. So what do you guys do when you are at destination?
So basically, after we arrive, we all get picked up by the bus and we are taken to the hotel. Once we arrive to the hotel, we are given our cards for the rooms and we are being told what time we need to show up for the flight, whatever the flight is, next day or in 2 days' time. And of course, the crew oftentimes make plans together, but there is a lot of memes and jokes how this process goes, because oftentimes in the briefing, people say, yes, I want to go out. We're going to go for sightseeing. We're going to be all, happy, large group. And then in flight, some of the people say, well, I think I'm going to be tired. I think I'm going to pass. And then by the time you reach to the hotel, reach the hotel, maybe that becomes half of the people who declare initially that they wanted to go out. And when the actual time comes for, for going out, oftentimes you're the only person there, and you call others and you're like, you told me you were going out with me for sightseeing. Oh, I'm sorry, I overslept. I can't. So this is what often happens. But of course, there are times when people do show up and they do go together and have fun. So it could be sightseeing. Some people rent a car, go, let's say if you are in LA for 48 hours, then people get together, they rent a car, they go for, to different areas. A lot of people are meeting their family members or friends. So if they fly to a place where they actually are from, then they go and stay or meet their family or friends. Also, yes?
How you cope with the jet lag? Or you don't have jet lag because you are completely living in a sort of a temporal space?
I'm just gonna just to finish because I think this is quite interesting, just to finish the time outside outstation. Just want to mention what is very popular among crews. Either it's shopping, they are looking forward, for example, to go to US and shop certain products, maybe some luxury items, maybe something in the outlets. Also big for us is shopping for groceries. I know that if I go to certain destinations, I'm gonna run into entire team somewhere in a grocery shop. People love to buy certain things from the destination. Also, a lot of times people do certain beauty related treatments. For example, Australia is very popular as a place to do the laser hair removal. If you go to Asia, then people will most likely get facial and nails done and maybe a haircut. So this is just to touch on the things that people actually do on the layovers. They also go to the gym or just spend time in their room watching maybe Netflix or chatting with their friends, family. Now, moving on to the question regarding the jet lag. Now, this is obviously a big topic, if not the biggest, within the community. We always talk about how much we have slept. So those are the hours conversations, like when someone fell asleep, how long, when they wake up, what they did, and they couldn't sleep again, etc., etc. So there's a lot of stories. Personally, I feel quite blessed that I handle jet lag quite well. I tend to spend my days off and concentrate on looking after myself. I try to eat very healthy regularly. I exercise regularly, and whenever I do get a chance to sleep, I do sleep. So I can even sleep for 17 hours, which maybe is not the healthiest, but if my body needs that, I can sleep for this long straight. And when I'm in destination, it's a little bit tricky to manage your rest times. If I arrive in the morning after the night flight without sleeping, I would probably sleep for maybe 3-4 hours just to give that boost to my body. And then I will maybe go out, meet someone for dinner, and then I will try to sleep again in the evening to be ready for the next morning flight. So different people have different approaches. Some people stay up the whole night if they have, and they sleep during the day if they have a night flight. Some wake up in the morning and they go to sleep again before the night flight. So everyone is different, but for me, I don't feel that still so impacted. And I think just because I do tend to look after myself quite well between
and do you guys sleep on the planes as well? Because some flights are really long. I mean, you mentioned it's a 16-hour flight, you said?
Yes. So yes, this is
you have shifts on board, and some people go to sleep at some point during the trip?
Yes. This is exactly how it's done. So for the certain flights, ultra long haul flights, different airlines might have a different criteria how this rest is decided and distributed. For us on the ultra long haul flights, we actually can and must take the legal rest, and this is when the team is split in half between services, and one set of crew goes to rest in a special crew rest compartment, and another one is looking after the passengers, the service, etc.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find a picture that I took during a visit to Airbus factory in Toulouse, where they show us some of the crew rest areas. I need to check in my archives. I think if I find it, I'm gonna post it in the transcript of the podcast so that people can see how these areas, these rest areas, look like. And what about food?
Yeah.
Do you eat the same food as the passengers, or you bring your own from home? How you do on these very long flights?
So the company provides for us meals, so-called crew meals, and they are a lot of times they are similar or even the same as for the passengers in business class, and a lot of times they are different. We also have boxes with snacks, and yeah, so this is provided by the company. However, a lot of people, maybe they follow the certain nutrition program, or they just don't want to eat the similar things so often, so they bring their own food. I personally try to bring my own pre-cooked food from home, or some snacks and fruits, and it's quite common among the crew to bring their own food. I actually do this even when I fly as a passenger.
Yeah, actually, if those interested in the sort of lifestyle of a long-haul cabin crew, they should go to your Instagram account and check it out. You've got plenty of tips there and information about how you handle all these practicalities. Can you tell us about your Instagram account? Is it Fly Like a Wasp, right?
Yes, that's right. So yes, I run travel related and flight attendant life related Instagram account when I'm trying to show the different scenes from on board the aircraft. I don't always have time because of course I'm working, but whenever it's safe and it doesn't affect my duties, I record some videos of me, walking down the aisle, being within the seat areas or in the galleys, just to show what our daily life looks like. I also include a lot of pictures or stories from outstation, from the layovers, and also from my travels.
Yeah, your private
which I
travel
do on my days off.
I'm quite amazed at how many airplanes you fly when you are not on duty. You might think that you might want to get as far as possible from an airplane when you are on your holiday or in your rest time, but with you it's actually kind of the opposite. You keep flying and flying. How many countries you've visited already?
Yes, I am counting that, and I've been to 111 countries. And this is primarily, those are the countries I visited outside of work. A lot of them are covered. For example, I've been to Germany for work, but I also been privately or to, let's say, to Indonesia. So yes, majority of them I went to in my free time. And like you mentioned, I do love flying, and because of the travel privileges that I have, I can fly quite freely, and I use that privilege to very extensively. And oftentimes, instead of just taking one plane, I take 4 planes to get to the destination, and I tend to do a lot of short trips. I don't have to fly just to the destination and spend there 2 weeks and save up or worry about the flight in and out. I can do even to the same destination shorter trips, but I don't have to be concerned about the flying that much.
What are the next destinations in the list as soon as borders reopen?
That's a good question. Well, actually, I've been quite lucky this year that I've done some major trips before March. I had 2 major holidays in January. I went by myself to Comoros, and I went also to the Caribbean. I visited 4 Caribbean islands, and then I moved to Colombia, and that was all in February. So I have done quite a bit of the personal travels this year. And as for other destinations, I tend to choose places I haven't been to. And as I move forward, there is less and less of them, not so much places as the countries. So that also impacts the way I select places to go to. So currently, I've been very excited about Saudi Arabia finally issuing tourist visas, and I live very close to Saudi Arabia, so I thought that might be the next destination. But now it's really hot in the region, so I might need to postpone. So
you
at
don't
the
need a
moment,
plane,
I'm
though.
just.
You don't need a plane to get there, though.
Well, technically, yes, I can. I don't need to the plane. That's a very good point. Yeah, I can go on the bus, but I'm not. I don't think there is any much of the traveling still happening within the region, even using the ground transport.
Yeah.
So I don't have any fixed plans for now, and frankly speaking, I've been sort of enjoying my time on the ground because I get to develop a different routine and basically see what it's like to sleep in your own bed. This is probably the longest I've slept in the same place in like 11 years. So it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's good that we also, possibly because of this, we could find a time slot to do this podcast as well. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to locate you somewhere around the world. Who knows where?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yes, and given the time difference, etc., then yes, it would be. I am difficult to catch.
So, for people that want to follow your travels on Instagram, can you remind us the account? That's Fly Like a Wasp, but that's with underscores between the different words. Yes. I'm going to post a link anyway in the podcast transcript.
Thank you. And if anyone has any questions regarding cabin crew, lifestyle and job, or the travels, then I'll be always happy to connect and to speak more about it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's been great speaking with you and learning about all these very interesting aspects of the cabin crew life. It sounds like a very, very, very interesting career, and one that gives you a chance to visit many interesting places.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a pleasure for me to talk about it. And I just got so excited picturing my life during the normal times. And I'm always happy to share. So thank you so much for making me a part of this conversation.
Let's hope that we can start flying again soon, back to normal. In the meantime, stay safe, and thank you very much.